On Sunday, 25th of January 2026, what was expected to be a calm and ordinary church service at Witima ACK Church in Othaya, Nyeri County, turned into one of the most dramatic and politically charged incidents Kenya witnessed at the beginning of the year. The service was attended by former Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua, a native of the area and a central figure in the country's shifting political landscape. Congregants had gathered early for worship, many unaware that the presence of a high-profile political leader would later plunge the church into chaos, fear, and national controversy. The service was underway when disorder suddenly erupted. According to eyewitnesses, moments after Gachagua's arrival and as prayers continued, tear gas canisters were lobbed into the church compound and reportedly into the sanctuary itself. Thick clouds of gas quickly filled the air, causing worshippers to cough, cry, and scramble for safety. Women, children, and elderly congregants were among those affected, with some collapsing due to breathing difficulties, while others ran blindly toward exits. Panic spread rapidly as confusion took hold, and the service was brought to an abrupt halt. Several congregants reported hearing loud bangs that they initially thought were gunshots, which intensified the fear. Whether these sounds were gunfire or the detonation of tear gas canisters remains a subject of investigation, but the psychological impact was immediate. Videos that later circulated on social media showed scenes of distress, with people covering their faces using handkerchiefs and pieces of clothing, while others fled across the church compound in disarray. In the midst of the chaos, Rigathi Gachagua was swiftly evacuated from the church by his security team and assisted by local residents. Conflicting accounts emerged about the exact manner of his escape, with some stating that he was whisked away through a back fence, while others said he was shielded by supporters as he made his way to safety. What is clear is that the situation had become too volatile for him to remain at the venue. He later confirmed that he had escaped unharmed and retreated to his home in Wamunyoro. The disruption did not end with the evacuation. Outside the church compound, vehicles belonging to Gachagua's entourage and some worshippers were vandalized. Reports indicated that at least one vehicle was set on fire, while others had their windows smashed. The destruction of property further underscored the intensity of the incident and raised serious questions about how a church service could descend into such violence under the watch of security agencies. In the hours following the incident, Gachagua emerged with strong and emotive statements. He condemned the events in the harshest terms, describing the attack as a deliberate attempt on his life. He accused the government, and specifically President William Ruto's administration, of orchestrating what he termed a state-sponsored assault. In one of his most explosive claims, he alleged that a killer squad had been dispatched to eliminate him inside the church, an allegation that immediately polarized public opinion. Gachagua argued that the use of tear gas in a place of worship was not accidental and could not be justified under any security protocol. He maintained that the officers involved were not responding to disorder but were executing a premeditated plan to intimidate or harm him. He also claimed that rogue police officers and political operatives had met earlier in the day to plan the disruption, and he went as far as naming individuals he believed were involved. His allies quickly rallied behind him. Opposition leaders, including former Vice President Kalonzo Musyoka, warned that the country was heading in a dangerous direction if political leaders could be attacked in churches. Kalonzo stated that Kenya risked instability if such incidents were allowed to continue unchecked, especially against leaders with significant popular support. Other politicians described the attack as an affront to democracy, freedom of worship, and the rule of law. In response, the National Police Service acknowledged that a serious incident had occurred and confirmed that investigations were underway. The Inspector General of Police ordered an inquiry into the use of tear gas and the circumstances under which it was deployed. Police officials stated that they were seeking to establish who authorized the action and whether proper procedures were followed. While confirming that tear gas had been used, the police initially downplayed reports of gunfire and said no fatalities had been recorded. Interior Cabinet Secretary Kipchumba Murkomen condemned the violence and emphasized that places of worship must remain neutral and protected spaces. He directed security agencies to conduct impartial investigations and assured the public that anyone found culpable would be held accountable. At the same time, government officials distanced the administration from claims of political targeting, insisting that the state had no interest in attacking political opponents in religious spaces. The incident triggered a wave of reactions from across the political and civic spectrum. Senators, governors, and members of parliament from different parties expressed shock and outrage. Senator Eddie Oketch called for a parliamentary probe, arguing that the use of force against worshippers represented a gross abuse of power. Nyeri Governor Mutahi Kahiga condemned the chaos and said it violated constitutional rights and the sanctity of the church. The Law Society of Kenya demanded accountability from the police, questioning how tear gas could be deployed in a church without consequences. However, not all voices supported Gachagua's version of events. Some leaders allied to the government accused him of stage-managing the chaos to gain political sympathy. Public Service Cabinet Secretary Geoffrey Ruku claimed that Gachagua had a history of events descending into disorder and suggested that the Othaya incident followed a similar pattern. According to this narrative, security officers were reacting to provocation and unrest rather than carrying out a targeted attack. These competing narratives deepened the political divide. Supporters of Gachagua viewed the incident as evidence of rising authoritarianism and the shrinking space for dissent. His critics, on the other hand, framed it as political theatre, designed to portray him as a victim ahead of future political contests. Social media became a battleground of opinions, with graphic videos and emotional testimonies fueling heated debate. Beyond politics, the human impact of the incident remained profound. Ordinary worshippers bore the brunt of the violence. Children were exposed to tear gas. Elderly congregants struggled to breathe, and families were separated in the confusion. For many in Witima and Othaya, the memory of fleeing a church service under a cloud of tear gas was deeply traumatizing. Church leaders later expressed sorrow and anger that a sacred space had been violated in such a manner. Faith-based organizations across the country condemned the incident, warning against the increasing politicization of churches. They called on politicians to respect the sanctity of worship and urged security agencies to exercise restraint, particularly in religious settings. Some church leaders warned that allowing political conflicts to spill into places of worship risked eroding social cohesion and moral authority. In the days that followed, Gachagua announced new dates for public rallies in Othaya and Kieni, which had been postponed due to the chaos. He also issued an ultimatum, stating that if officers responsible for the incident were not arrested, he would mobilize nationwide protests. This threat raised concerns about further unrest and placed additional pressure on investigative agencies. The ACK Church incident quickly became a symbol of Kenya's tense political climate as the country edged closer to the 2027 general elections. It highlighted unresolved issues surrounding the use of state power, the neutrality of security agencies, and the safety of political engagement. Civil society groups warned that failure to address the incident transparently would deepen mistrust between citizens and the state. As investigations continued, the events of 25th January 2026 remained etched in the national consciousness. What began as a Sunday worship service ended as a defining political moment, raising difficult questions about leadership, accountability, and the boundaries between politics, security, and faith. Whether the truth ultimately supports claims of a targeted attack or allegations of political manipulation, the chaos at Witima ACK Church stands as a stark reminder of how fragile peace can be when political rivalry enters sacred spaces.